Welcome to our deep dive today. We're going to be talking about Jeff Koons.
Oh, yeah, Jeff Koons.
He's one of those artists that you either love him or you hate him.
I think so.
But everyone's got an opinion.
Definitely.
And so we're going to kind of dig into his background, his work, and also some of the controversies surrounding his work today.
Sounds good.
So we've got a bunch of stuff here. We've got your notes. We've got some articles. We've, done some research.
I think we're ready.
Yeah. But just to get started, I mean, talk about his childhood a little bit because, it seems like it really informed his later work.
Yeah, for sure. His dad was an interior designer.
Okay.
And he had like a showroom.
Mm-hmm.
And he would actually display Jeff Koons' artwork.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, when he was a little kid.
That's pretty unusual. I mean, most kids, their parents are just sticking their artwork on the refrigerator.
Right, exactly.
Not like in a showroom.
Yeah, like professionally.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so, at a young age, he had this exposure to design, color, creating a feeling with objects and spaces.
Yeah.
That's something that he carried through his whole career.
Interesting. So it seems like there's a pretty direct line there, from that kind of childhood experience with his dad.
Yeah, I think so.
To then his work, later on with, the balloon dogs and all the shiny surfaces and all the bright colors.
Sure.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. And then, of course, he goes to art school.
Right.
So he goes to Maryland Institute College of Art.
Okay.
And then the School of the Art Institute of Chicago.
So he's got like a pretty good foundation in art.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Before he even gets to New York.
Yeah.
So he moves to New York in 77.
77, yeah.
And gets a job at MoMA.
At MoMA, working at the membership desk.
What?
Yeah.
So the guy who's going to become like one of the highest paid artists in the world.
That's like the selling museum membership.
Selling museum memberships.
I know.
That's wild.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
That's crazy.
But he was really good at it. He was like
Oh.
a really, really good salesman.
Mm-hmm.
So even back then, he had this like charisma
Okay.
that would kind of define his later career.
Yeah, you have to wonder if obviously that takes a certain personality to be able to do that well.
Yeah.
But like how much of that then translates into the art world? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the art world is so much about, not just creating the art, but also
Selling it, promoting yourself. Yeah.
all the, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
The whole business side of it.
Yeah.
And it sounds like he really understood that
Yeah. He understood it from the beginning.
really early on. So at this point, he's at MoMA, he's selling memberships.
Right.
Is he also making art at this time?
Yeah, he starts making art while he's at MoMA. So he's doing these inflatable flowers
Okay.
and bunnies, often with like mirrors
Okay.
and acrylic.
So already starting to see like those signature Koons elements coming in.
Totally.
The bright colors, the everyday object.
The playfulness.
Yeah, playfulness.
Yeah, it's all there.
And then he makes this move that just seems so out of left field.
What's that?
He decides to become a commodities broker on Wall Street.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a change of pace.
I know, right? It's like the opposite of the art world.
Totally. It's like, you're going from this quiet, contemplative museum environment
Totally.
to like the craziness of Wall Street.
Yeah, Shark Tank.
Why do you think he made that jump?
I think it was a few things. I think, one, ambition.
Okay.
He wanted to make a lot of money.
Okay.
Two, I think he really wanted to be independent.
Mm.
He wanted to be able to fund his own art
Yeah,
and not have to rely on galleries or patrons.
that makes sense.
And I think that's exactly what Wall Street allowed him to do.
So is that when he starts making the new series?
That's right. So The New is his first major series, and it's really where he starts to kind of explore these ideas that he'll continue to develop throughout his career.
Okay, so let's talk about the new then.
Okay.
Because it seems like that was a real turning point for him.
Yeah, definitely. So in The New, he takes these everyday appliances like vacuum cleaners,
Uh-huh.
floor polishers,
Mm-hmm.
and he puts them in these pristine, like acrylic cases.
So he's like elevating these mundane objects
Yeah, like almost like they're sacred relics or something.
to the status of art.
Exactly.
But why? What was the point of that?
Well, he's playing with this idea of ready-made art,
Hmm.
which goes back to Duchamp
Okay.
and his famous urinal. But Koons takes it further. He wants us to really look at these objects
Yeah.
in the new way, to question their value and our relationship to them in this consumer society.
So it's almost like he's making a statement about our obsession with newness.
Yeah, totally.
With shiny things, with buying the latest gadget, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
It's all about that. But there's also, I think, deeper layers to it.
Okay.
The new also deals with, like, mortality and the fleeting nature of material possessions.
Interesting.
Even the newest, shiniest object eventually gets old and breaks down.
I mean, it's amazing to me how much he's packing into these seemingly simple pieces.
Right.
I mean, it's not just a vacuum cleaner in a box. It's a whole commentary on society.
Yeah, exactly. And he continues this exploration in his next series, Equilibrium,
Okay.
where he takes basketballs, another like symbol of American consumerism,
Right.
and suspends them in water tanks.
So he's still playing with these everyday objects.
Yep.
But now there's this like element of tension almost.
Absolutely.
A precarious balance.
He's a master of creating these visual metaphors.
Okay.
So the basketballs, perfectly balanced, they become this representation of our own search for equilibrium,
Oh, I see.
in a world that's constantly changing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So by the mid-'80s, he's already established himself as this artist who's, challenging conventions, pushing buttons,
Yeah.
making people think. But when did he really, break through?
I'd say that moment comes in 1986
Okay.
at a group show at the Sonnabend Gallery. His work was so different
Yeah.
from the prevailing style at the time, which was neo-expressionism.
And neo-expressionism, that was all about, the raw emotion.
Right. Very gestural brushstrokes.
Yeah.
Very emotional.
So how is his work different?
Well, his pieces were, slick, polished, almost mechanical. They were embracing, artificiality, mass production, pop culture,
Yeah.
instead of rejecting it. It was a real shock to the system for a lot of people.
And what about the critics?
Oh, they were divided, of course.
Yeah.
But many of them saw it as a turning point, a new direction for contemporary art.
Really?
Yeah, and from that point on, Koons' star just kept rising, and it really kind of takes off with the Banality series in 1988.
Banality. Okay.
And that's where he really, embraces this idea of kitsch and kind of pushes it to the extreme.
Okay. And that's the one with the Michael Jackson sculpture, right?
Yes.
With Bubbles the chimp.
Yeah. That's one of the most iconic pieces from that series.
Mm.
He takes these figures that are already, steeped in pop culture and celebrity,
Right.
and he renders them in porcelain,
Oh, wow.
which is, traditionally associated with high art, fine craftsmanship.
Yeah, totally.
So again, you get this collision of high and lows.
Right. He loves those contradictions.
He does. He loves to play with those contradictions. And it creates this sense of unease, but also fascination.
Yeah, I can see that.
You're drawn to it, but you're also a little bit repulsed by it at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so 80s too, right?
Oh, totally. Like the decade of greed.
Yeah.
It's all about, excess and surface appearances, and Koons is tapping right into that.
Yeah, and don't forget the whole self-promotion thing he had going on at the time.
The art magazine ads.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, posing as this art star.
He's a celebrity.
Yeah.
Yeah, he understood the power of image, of branding, and he used it to his advantage.
Totally.
Yeah.
So, speaking of pushing boundaries,
Yeah.
we have to talk about Made in Heaven.
Oh, yeah, Made in Heaven.
Which, well, it's the one with all the explicit imagery of him and his then wife.
Right, Ilona Staller.
Yeah. So this was really controversial, obviously.
Oh, incredibly controversial. I mean, these were photographs and sculptures depicting them in, very explicit poses.
Yeah, and it's not like this was just hidden away in some gallery somewhere.
This was on billboards. It was in magazines.
Wow, he was really putting it out there.
He wanted to provoke a reaction, and he definitely got one.
So what was the reaction? I mean, people must have been freaking out.
Oh, it's explosive. I mean, critics were totally divided. Some people were like, this is brilliant. He's exploring desire and intimacy.
Others were like, this is pornography. This is not art.
Yeah.
There were boycotts. There were protests, calls for censorship.
Wow.
But Koons was defiant. He was like, I'm just exploring the beauty of human sexuality.
It definitely sparked a conversation.
No, absolutely. It made people question, what is acceptable in art? Where do you draw the line?
Right.
And I think, regardless of where you stand on that, it's undeniable that it had a huge impact on his career.
For sure. It really put him on the map, in a way.
Yeah. For better or for worse.
So let's move on to something a little less controversial,
Okay.
but no less iconic, I think. The balloon dog sculptures
Yes, the balloon dog.
from the Celebration series. I mean, those have become so recognizable. You see them everywhere.
They're everywhere. They're almost a symbol of his whole career.
Why do you think those resonated so much with people?
I think it's that combination of childhood nostalgia
Okay.
and technical mastery.
Right, so they look simple.
They look like something you could just, like, twist up
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, like a balloon animal.
But then you get up close and you see the detail,
Right.
the mirror-like
That
finish,
scale of them.
the scale. They're huge. And it's like, how did he do that?
Yeah.
You know, it's mind-blowing.
So he's taken something that's very fleeting and temporary.
Like a balloon.
Yeah, like a child's balloon,
Which
and
is.
made it into something permanent and monumental.
And valuable.
Yeah.
It's kind of a paradox, right?
It is, it is. And, you know, when you think about it, there's also that kind of underlying tension there.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, those balloon animals, they're inflated, almost to the point of bursting.
Like they could pop at any moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So even though they're these cheerful, playful objects, there's also this sense of, like, fragility.
A sense of impending doom, almost.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but yeah.
It's there. It's like, you know, even in the midst of celebration, there's always that awareness of the possibility of loss.
Wow, that's deep.
Koons makes you think.
He does. And speaking of monumental, we have to talk about Puppy,
Oh, yes, Puppy.
the giant floral sculpture.
A West Highland Terrier.
Yeah, I mean, that thing has become a landmark.
It has. It was first displayed in Germany in '92, and it's traveled all over the world.
Yeah, and it's just so joyful, you know?
It is. It's hard not to smile when you see it.
And it's amazing how he's taken these, like, simple materials.
Flowers, steel, and irrigation systems.
Yeah.
And turn them into something so powerful and evocative.
It's like he's tapped into this, like, primal thing in us.
Our love of animals.
Yeah, our need for beauty, for connection.
He reminds us that even in this, like, crazy, chaotic world, there's still room for wonder and joy.
Huh. I love that. So he's not just about these shiny surfaces and happy puppies, though, is he?
No, not at all. His later work gets even more complex, I think.
Yeah.
He starts to explore some darker themes,
Okay.
like in the Easy Fun series and Hulk Elvis.
What's he exploring in those?
Well, he's still engaging with pop culture,
Mm-hmm.
but he's also, like, critiquing it.
Okay.
He's looking at the underbelly of it, you know, the violence, the sexuality, the grotesqueness that's often hidden beneath the surface.
So it's almost like he's saying, look at what we're consuming. Look at what we're celebrating.
Exactly. He's making us question our values, the images that shape our world.
Interesting. So it's not just a celebration of pop culture. It's also a critique of it.
Yeah, it's both.
He's such a complex artist.
He is. And then there's the Antiquity series, where he starts to look at classical art.
Oh, yeah. What's going on there?
Well, he's taking these ancient sculptures like Venus, Hercules,
Right.
satyr figures, and he's reinterpreting them through his own lens, you know?
So shiny surfaces, bright colors.
Of course. But it's more than that. He's creating this dialogue between the past and the present,
Okay.
between high art and kitsch,
Right.
between the idealized beauty of, like, classical forms and the raw sexuality of contemporary culture.
That's really interesting. So it's like he's saying these ancient themes, love, desire, beauty, power, they're still relevant today,
Absolutely.
but we're experiencing them in a different way.
Through a different filter, yeah.
Yeah, it's a way of connecting with our shared human history, but also acknowledging how different things are now.
Exactly. And that's, I think, what makes Koons so compelling. He's always pushing boundaries, challenging us to re-examine our assumptions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've gone from vacuum cleaners in boxes to giant balloon dogs to, like, ancient Greek sculptures and stainless steel. What a ride. What a ride. And along the way, he's provoked so many conversations about, you know, what is art? What is the role of the artist?
The value of objects, of images.
Yeah, so, I mean, love him or hate him, you can't deny his impact.
No, you can't. He makes you think, he makes you feel.
But, you know, there's still that controversy around.
Oh, always.
Some people think he's a charlatan, a con man.
Right. A lot of the criticism is about his commercial success.
Yeah, the fact that he has, like, a team of people
A whole studio full of artisans.
fabricating his work.
Yeah. Some people see that as a betrayal, like he's not really the one making the art.
And then there's the whole question of originality,
Right. Some people say he's just appropriating existing imagery.
or repackaging it for a wealthy elite.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But Koons argues that he's the conceptual artist.
Okay.
He's the one with the ideas.
Right.
And his team is just executing his vision.
Like an architect.
Exactly. He designs the building, but he doesn't lay every brick.
Interesting analogy. And you can't deny his success, right? I mean, Rabbit, the stainless steel bunny,
Sold for over $90 million.
91 million. That's got to be some kind of record, right?
It was. At the time, it really cemented his place as one of the most successful living artists.
Wow. And his work has gone way beyond the art world, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's collaborated with Louis Vuitton, with Lady Gaga.
He's become a pop culture icon.
He has. So, I mean, what's the verdict? Genius or con man?
Visionary or sellout.
Maybe he's a little bit of all of those things.
Right. He's hard to pin down.
He is. He's a complex, contradictory figure.
He embodies the contradictions of our time.
He really does. He's both a product of consumer culture and a critic of it.
Yeah, he's a master showman, but also a deeply thoughtful artist.
And he's both embraced and reviled by the art world.
And that's what makes him so fascinating, right?
I think so. He forces us to confront our own assumptions about art, about value, about beauty.
He's a mirror reflecting our desires, our anxieties.
Our contradictions.
Yeah, whether we like what we see or not.
We can't look away.
So we've covered a lot, I feel like, with Koons.
We have.
You know, we talked about his work, the controversies, the crazy amount of money that his pieces go for.
The impact he's had.
Yeah, but like what's it all mean?
Right.
What's his legacy going to be? Like, how does he fit into art history as a whole?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
And I don't think there is an easy answer to that. But I do think it's interesting to think about how he's really changed the way we look at art.
Yeah.
Like what we even consider to be art.
Right.
And who gets to decide those things.
You were talking earlier about him being like a mirror, reflecting our culture back at us.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking about those shiny surfaces in his work, how they're almost like distorting the image, you know?
Yeah, they make you look twice.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not just presenting these objects, he's making you confront them.
Yeah.
Like, think about the celebration pieces, the balloon animals, the bunnies. They're all about, like, childhood and innocence. But there's this tension there, this darkness underneath.
It's like he's saying, hey, remember being a kid. Remember being happy.
Not that simple.
It wasn't that simple.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of creepy, actually.
It is a little bit unsettling.
Yeah.
But I think that's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah.
You know, he's not afraid to make us uncomfortable, to challenge our ideas about things.
And he's also really, like, merged high art and pop culture in a way that I don't think anyone else has done.
Totally. I mean, he takes these everyday objects, these mass-produced images, and he puts them in a museum.
Right.
Like, they're as important as a Michelangelo.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's revolutionary, really.
It's like he's saying that there's beauty and meaning to be found
Everywhere.
everywhere.
Yeah, even in the most, like, mundane, kitschy things.
Yeah, and it's not just about, like, making art accessible. It's also about making us think more critically about the stuff we see every day.
Right. The images, the objects, all of it.
He wants us to look beyond the surface.
Be more aware.
Yeah.
More conscious.
So for someone who's maybe just learning about Koons, what would you say is, like, the most important thing to keep in mind?
I would say approach his work with an open mind.
Okay.
And a critical eye.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to question things.
Right.
To be provoked.
He wants you to react.
He does.
He wants you to think.
To feel something.
Whether you love it or hate it, it's going to make you think.
Exactly.
And I think that's really what art is all about.
I think so, too. It's not just about, you know, pretty pictures.
It's about starting conversations.
Pushing boundaries.
Making us see the world differently.
And Koons has definitely done that.
He has.
I don't think there's any question about that.
Love him or hate him.
He's left his mark.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
He's here to stay.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Into the world of Jeff Koons. I hope you learned something.
I hope so, too.
And, yeah, keep those conversations about art going.
Absolutely.